I'm here playing with the Series 1, just getting it running perfect. I was going to adjust the carbies because this one's coming on first when you accelerate. Like you might, I'll show you all later. But the other thing was I noticed this carbie was sticking a little bit at idle. You had to tap the gas pedal to make it go back. And I've just had a look inside and you can see why, very obviously. So I think I'll pull both these carbies off and give them a good clean. And then it should all work well. Because, yeah, the complaints with this car was it would always idle fast, or it was pinging, or doing other shit, or really hard to start. And if this was sticking open, that would make it hard to start. So, yeah, I'll show you all what's happening. Well, there's the throttle linkage. This is off the first carby here, the back carby, and then it goes off to the front one. Now, if I accelerate just a little bit, you'll see that little bit of movement there before anything happens on the rod. The rod moves there. But yeah, that'll make it stutter just at takeoff. But at the moment the carby's sticking, so it's stuck on a bit, and now it'll be idling at about 1200 RPM. Then you'd have to do that to get it to idle properly again. Yeah, it's not the best shot in the world, but you can see how dirty it is down there. And that's why the butterfly's sticking a bit. So I'll clean all that up. Then I've got to check those springs to make sure that they're even on both carbies. Because one of those is heat affected or something, that would also give trouble. But just tapping the gas pedal shut brings it back to a good idle. Well, there we go. 10 minutes later, I have both carbies off. And I found something rather interesting, which might make the old owner, Ed, a little bit upset. Well, I took them off as a package. It was easier that way. And just so I could see what all the linkages were doing. And I noticed that when you open the throttle, this carby gets a bit stiff. But the other thing I noticed on the carby that was sticking and doing all the weird things and making fast idle and stuff, if we have a look here, that's going to cause a whole range of problems. So that's mainly what was causing all the carby problems on this car. And Ed, if you took the carbies off as I was nagging you to, you would have found this straight away, and problem solved. So that's why it would change every day, warm, cold, everything. So this was just flapping about. Let's get a good shot. That's the butterfly. That's the overrun valve. So if you take your foot off the throttle at higher revs and make an extreme low pressure in the manifold, that will open and just let a bit more air and fuel through so the engine doesn't lean out too much and start burning oil and crap. But yeah, you can see how much this moves. Like just by the carbon line on it. It's just flapping around. So I'll tighten all that up. And it should be very consistent afterwards and probably a lot easier to start. Because yeah, it was a little bit inconsistent, the idle. Now I've got it at idle position, this throttle plate. Now if I grab it just at the bottom, you can see how much movement there is, and the actual throttle shaft is not moving at all. So throttle open, throttle close, throttle open, throttle close. So that would make... So I was wondering why it was being a bit of a prick to tune. I'd have to keep flicking the throttle. But then that would make it pretty much impossible to tune. So there we go. Simple as that. 2 loose screws. Well, that's all nice and tight now. Only about a quarter of a turn each screw. So that should be heaps better. Well, there we go, all back together. I'll get it running and tune it up tomorrow. It's a little late at night. It's probably about 3 o'clock in the morning and 4 degrees Celsius. But yeah, that should work much better now. And the other problem it had was it was pinging a bit. So I've backed the timing off just a little bit. But the main reason it was pinging is the auto, once it gets into third gear, or second gear, let's say it'll go into third gear at 40 kilometers an hour. And if you are going 40 or faster, it will not go back to second, even if you floor it, which will make the engine ping because it's labouring like hell. So either that is a vacuum module adjustment, because it's all new and now it's worn in. I need to adjust it and bump the line pressure up so it kicks back earlier. Or I remembered that this car has a line filter in it down there. Now if that's blocked, that could cause the line pressure to drop off and also make it sluggish to kick back. So I will check that first, and if that is alright, I'll get under and put more pressure on the diaphragm of the vacuum module. And that should be it really, and just need to put a new water pump on it. But yeah, apart from that it's just running beautifully. I've been driving it every day for the last few days, and apart from the odd idle and everything, and the auto not kicking back when it should, can't complain. So yeah. Well, I took that filter out and reverse blew it out, and nothing majorly wrong with it, so I put it back. That means I have to adjust the vacuum module on the auto. It would be set for a factory engine and factory vacuum settings, which this one isn't. So yeah, it's got to increase the line pressure. That is all. And apart from that, one other thing that shits me to tears, there's a little idler pulley down there. It's an auto adjuster for the power steering belt, and it's been squeaking on and off for ages, and it just started squeaking again today, to the point where I can pull on this belt. The whole time the car's running you just hear a little... It's fucking horrible. So I'll try and get down there and lubricate it, or do it when I replace the water pump. God, it's annoying. These cars have a vacuum accumulator tank here, next to the brake booster. I'm going to delete this for two reasons. Number one, because it looks like Ed's had a little fit with the Ultra Blue, so probably was leaking. And number two, this has to vac down before you get a good manifold vacuum. And don't really need this because the valve up there is pretty fucked, and all it's for is to run the heater controls, so it's fairly pointless. So I'll delete all that, and that'll get rid of all this extra hose of having to vac down before you get a good manifold vacuum. So yeah, I'll get rid of that now. I think I'll probably just put a bolt in the hose up at that end, just for the time being, until I make something nicer. There we go. Just cut the hose off there and jammed a bolt in at the hose clamp. And all that's for, there's like a little vacuum line that goes off into the cabin. That's all this crap's for. And that's a check valve. They all fail. So I've got a check valve just there before it goes into the cabin. So it doesn't need all that shit.